Tonight, a push for change after a weekend of deadly gun violence across the city.
You can clean up the scene all you want. There's a family now that is in agony, in grief, in shock.
4 people are dead after 8 shootings over the past 2 days. The latest victim, a taxi driver, found fatally shot in his vehicle. Gun control advocates saying enough is enough. Plus,
this is so much better than having nothing. Really glad that they're starting to roll out these programs.
every public school in Toronto will be getting a supply of take-home PCR tests by the end of the week. How much of a difference will it make in stopping the spread of COVID-19? And
everyone should be able to unplug at the end of their workday.
feeling like your work and home life blurring into one? The province wants to change that. The new legislation that will give many employees the right to disconnect. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Toronto police have identified the cab driver shot and killed yesterday, a 73-year-old Christopher Young. Young was one of 4 people killed this weekend in a string of shootings across the city. The deadly gun violence has led to fresh calls for all levels of government to do more to address the problem. Ali Chiasson has more.
One weekend, 8 shootings, 4 of them fatal. The most recent one involved a Beck taxi driver shot dead at pharmacy in Eglinton in Scarborough around 9 o'clock last night. A driver's worst fear.
They want to know everything about it because they want to figure out, I think, what they could do to avoid it happening to them. The hope is that the camera inside the vehicle will give us the full story about what happened, and that's what we're waiting to see.
The taxi driver's death marks 37 fatal shootings so far this year. After this weekend, Toronto has surpassed the total number of shooting deaths logged for all of 2020. Toronto police say it's too early to connect this weekend's 4 fatal shootings to gang violence.
We definitely have a problem with gangs and with guns. However, each instance or incident is investigated separately, and then we look for commonalities in these incidents as we continue the investigation forward.
This is not Chicago. This is Toronto we live in.
Louis March founded the Zero Gun Violence movement. He says it may be too early in the police investigations to connect the shootings to gang activity, but March says he's seen this all too many times.
I'm hoping that it's a wake-up call, because some people would just react to it today, but tomorrow they're back to normal. No.
Listen, one homicide, one shooting is too much. But when you look year over year, the numbers, they're fairly consistent.
And that is unacceptable, says March.
There's a family now that is in agony, in grief, in shock. There's a community that is agony, grief, and traumatized by the shooting.
He says police may be able to solve the crimes, but not the issue of gun violence as a whole.
It's not only the mayor, it's the premier, it's the prime minister. They talk about programming, they talk about funding. In reality, that's not going to solve it by itself unless it's done in a coordinated, strategic way.
In the meantime, police are actively working to solve these latest cases, and for that, they need witnesses.
The police cannot do what they do without the public's help. Any little piece of information could be just enough to complete the puzzle that we need.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
And police have identified 24-year-old Matteo Yucana as the victim in a shooting that happened on Saturday in North York. It happened near Weston Road and Highway 401. Police arrived on scene to find the victim in a car without vital signs. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Police have also identified 36-year-old Donald Leroy Smokey Marson as the man shot and killed in an apartment unit early Saturday morning near Eglinton and Trethewey. If you went to a restaurant or a gym today, you may have noticed more people. Ontario lifted capacity limits today in a majority of spaces that require proof of vaccination. But are businesses and customers ready to return to normal? Natalie Collada went to find out.
The last time I was able to come in was in October.
Gunyang Gul is thrilled to be back at the gym.
Especially with less sunlight, the weather getting colder, it's really nice to be able to come indoors and work out.
With restrictions easing today, her gym is one business allowed to return to pre-pandemic capacity levels.
To say it has not been excruciating and it hasn't been extremely challenging would be a complete lie. It's been a huge emotional toll on me.
So he's moving slowly.
We still have spacing throughout the studio. We haven't went straight to 100% just yet, but it's great to have the opportunity to do so, and it's great to have the runway to start to rebuild our business.
I like having it half full, to be honest with you.
Restaurant owners Cindy Stern and Louis Nemes are proceeding with caution.
How are you preparing for the change in capacity limits?
I've instructed the staff to, wherever possible, just to space out the customers. I also don't think we'll be full capacity yet. I don't think the customers in this neighborhood are quite ready for it.
Rising vaccination rates could help.
In Ontario, almost 9 in 10 Ontario residents who are eligible, 12 plus, has got at least one dose of the vaccines. What that allows us to do is open in this way that even if it doesn't go exactly as we want, there is still that sort of slow increase as opposed to really exponential increase.
Customer confidence isn't the only thing holding back businesses from returning to 100% capacity.
I think there's just been a big change in the industry. A lot of people reevaluated their career choices, left the city.
Ontario is facing a labor shortage. Experts warn that could lead to sticker shock.
One of the things that I think people will find a bit frustrating is that if restaurants or retail stores or gyms need to increase pay somewhat in order to increase their staffing levels, this will be reflected in prices.
Businesses and customers will have to adapt. For Stern and Nemes, it may take some more time, but they have a plan to make it happen.
Just real vigilance, I think, will build up trust.
Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
Every public school in Toronto will be getting a supply of PCR test kits by the end of the week. PCR tests are considered to be the most accurate in detecting COVID-19. But while this new program offers low-barrier testing that should help identify cases in schools more easily, some are calling for a more proactive strategy. Dale Manukduk reports.
The kits will be available for take-home COVID-19 testing. The program has been running since September, prioritized for schools that had a dismissed cohort or a positive symptomatic case. Sick Kids Hospital is sending 100 kits to more than 600 schools that can restock as needed. Those schools have created contactless drop boxes.
And every day, Monday to Friday, a courier will come and pick up the test kit samples and return them to the hospital for processing.
The test is administered with a mouth-nose swab or through collecting saliva. The turnaround time for results is between 24 and 48 hours.
Earlier access to testing allows for us to know quicker if someone's safe to come back to school and actually gets them back to school, where all children really need to be right now.
There are currently 6 active outbreaks in Toronto schools. While the program is welcomed by many, some believe it's not enough. They want rapid, asymptomatic testing.
We are parents, we are workers, we are volunteers, and we are tired, and we would just love to have more real support.
Erin Sperling has been distributing rapid test kits to parents at her child's school and believes a preventative strategy is the way to go.
It takes away so much of the fear and the stress and anxiety around sending our most beloved people into a space.
Our first speaker is Sam Kaufman.
Her co-organizer, Sam Kaufman, called into the Toronto Board of Health meeting today to advocate.
Like it or not, you and other PHUs are now the gatekeepers of the province's supply of rapid tests. I'm here to urge the Board and Public Health to move quickly on this opportunity.
Health experts say testing can be used in a variety of ways. The more tools, the more protected we are.
There's no one intervention that's going to create a perfectly safe space. This is so much better than having nothing. And I'm really glad that they're starting to roll out these programs.
Catching symptomatic cases earlier should reduce transmission because COVID-19 is most infectious 10 days after illness. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Nick Cernkovich joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Nick, it was a dreary start to the week, cloudy and rainy pretty much the entire day.
Yeah, lots of rain, Calda, throughout the day today. We've had special weather statements in effect for a while just because of that rainfall. Some areas expecting to see upwards to about 50 millimeters of rain when all is said and done. And the rain continues into the overnight period tonight. So here's what you can expect in the forecast carrying through until tomorrow morning. We've got showers, so likely a wet start to the day for tomorrow. As we move through the afternoon, it slowly begins to taper off. So what we're expecting to see here with this system is by noon, kind of tapering more to sort of light shower activity. By the evening, it should generally be dry for us, but what we're expecting to see is cloud cover continuing as we head into Wednesday as well. Temperatures today up to about 8 degrees, so a little below the seasonal mark, which sits closer to about 11 degrees for this time of year. Overnight tonight down to 6, tomorrow 10 degrees. Rain showers continue and gusty winds as well, but there is some sunshine in the forecast. We'll have that coming up in just a bit. Kelvin.
All right, thanks, Nick. Well, are you feeling like you can't unplug from work even when you're off the clock? The Ford government wants to change that. The province is making most employers in Ontario put in place what's called a right to disconnect policy. It could apply to some 5 million workers in this province. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has more.
At 1 o'clock every day?
Working from home. For many people, it's been one of the pandemic's biggest changes. But what about when your work life bleeds so much into home life that you're on the phone or answering emails nonstop?
Everyone should be able to unplug at the end of their workday.
Labour Minister Monty McNaughton is at this downtown Toronto co-working space to announce right to disconnect legislation. Every workplace with 25 employees or more will have to establish policies to allow staff to turn off after hours.
The lines between work and personal time has really blurred during this pandemic, and this is a step in the right direction to really help the mental health of workers.
Ontario will be the first place in Canada with such legislation. Its aim is not just better work-life balance, but also helping companies retain skilled staff.
That's really important to have a policy in place just to provide employees with the knowledge that they don't have to be on all the time, because I think if left alone, people are just going to assume that they have to be connected.
When people go on vacation and take time off, we absolutely insist that they put on their out-of-office notices, as well as avoid their cell phones at all costs.
Critics question whether the measure will have any teeth.
The devil's going to definitely be in the details, right? And I think that enforcement of these proposed, policies may be difficult.
There is going to have to be a very clear rule as to when people are expected and when they're not expected to be available for work. Otherwise, you're just going to have, the chaos which we're really seeing now in some places.
Recognize the minister. The Ford government tabled its workplace legislation this afternoon.
The Working for Workers Act 2021 is how we're rebalancing the scales to lift people up and put workers in the driver's seat of Ontario's future.
That bill also wraps in some other announcements from over the past week. It includes stricter rules for temp agencies and changes to help some foreign-trained professionals get jobs in their fields. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
For the first time today, court heard submissions from accused killer Corey Fenn, who argued he was not mentally present when he killed a woman and her 2 children in Ajax. The 33-year-old has pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of second-degree murder in connection to the 2018 killings of Kresimira Pejanovsky and her 2 teen children. Fenn has not called any witnesses or cross-examined anyone who testified in court. He has repeatedly requested a name change in court, emphasizing that he is a new person. Fenn's former lawyer also gave her closing statements at the trial today. She argued he was not in a stable state of mind to intentionally commit murder and asked the judge to consider reducing the 3 counts of second-degree murder to manslaughter. Toronto Police Services Board and the City of Toronto are facing a lawsuit tonight from some of the people who were at the clearing of a homeless encampment that turned violent.
I took the day off to help my neighbors and ended up in the hospital at the hands of the police. In what world that is just does this make sense? Housing is a human right, and brutalizing us will not solve the housing crisis.
But we're also doing this so that the police, the city, knows not to resort to violence for future encampment clearings.
5 people who say they went to Lamport Stadium that day to support residents of the encampment claim they were assaulted by police. Their lawsuit names the City of Toronto, the Police Services Board, and 4 officers as defendants. The statement of claim also alleges a number of violations under the Ontario Human Rights Code and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Most of the plaintiffs are claiming $300,000 to $350,000 each. The city, Toronto Police, and its board say they have yet to receive the statement of claim. Welcome back. A new CBC Toronto series called Rediscovering Culture is starting today, highlighting stories from people in the GTA who are on a path to learning more about their roots. As Kirsten Assasi-Theron tells us, for many younger people, rediscovering culture is all about finding a community.
For Tiara J. Chutkan, rediscovering her Caribbean roots came at a time when she was rediscovering herself.
I think I felt really out of place. This was a couple years ago for me, so I was like 22, and I was just in this very strange place in my life where I didn't really know where I was going. It was really overwhelming, and it was kind of like tricky because I just felt like I didn't know myself enough.
Chutkan has Trinidadian and Guyanese roots, but growing up, she never really paid attention to what her cultural identity meant to her. But she did note when people were quick to assume she was of South Asian descent, something she never really understood.
When people think the Caribbean, I feel like they think of like the more common islands, like Jamaica, for example. But Trinidad and Guyana, no one really identified. And then after that, it was, followed up by, well, why do you look Indian then? Like as in from India. And that was weird for me too, because I never thought about it that way. My identity always felt very invalidated.
A new CBC series called Rediscovering Culture is asking people in the GTA what it's like for them to be reconnecting with their cultural roots. For some, the journey might be similar to that of Tiara, a disconnect from what the world sees versus what they know about themselves. For those like Ravina Chanjusel, the journey towards reconnecting to culture has come from a place of finding belonging after being around friends who, she says, stifled her from being her authentic self.
Everything that mattered to them was about being brown on their terms. That meant like talking about Bollywood, but not too much. It meant bringing Indian food, but not the gross kind. I would say like, oh guys, like, let's do something for the volley, or like, let's play holy, or they're like, no, we're not fobs.
She says going to university in London, Ontario really made a difference for her.
I found my friends who happened to be Indian because I just naturally wanted people who liked Indian culture. And that naturally meant like following cultural things and doing cultural things, like going to Garba and going to, the dance workshops that we had, like for Bhangra and stuff like that. So, and that was because I felt accepted finally. But not only because I was around people that accepted me, but I think it's because I finally just accepted who I was.
There's something missing for this second generation of millennials and now Generation Z who are coming up, who are still looking for this meaning.
Camille Hernandez Ramdwar is a professor in the Department of Sociology and Caribbean Studies at Ryerson University. She says while anyone at any stage in life can be on this journey, there is a sense of wonder, especially in younger generations.
It's feeling like being Canadian isn't enough, because this generation is still being asked the same questions my generation was, which is, where are you from?
The 2-year journey towards rediscovery has been eye-opening for Chutkan.
People of color, whatever background, have not always been able to see themselves and express their culture and feel comfortable in spaces and feel represented and know our roots for one reason or the next. And I think one of the biggest reasons, again, is so much of our history has been tampered with. But when we find them, I think it's a lot more empowering.
Kirsten Assasi-Theron, CBC News, Toronto.
And we want to hear how you are connecting to your cultural roots. You can get in touch with us through Instagram and Twitter at CBC Toronto, or reach out through our website, where you can also see all the stories in this series, cbc.ca/rediscoveringculture. A wet and foggy evening, and that rain will continue into the overnight. A special weather statement remains in place in Toronto. Currently, it's 6 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Nick now with a look at your extended forecast. And Nick, this rain will continue into tomorrow.
Yeah, the rain continuing through tomorrow, but then we start to see things easing off a little bit into tomorrow afternoon, and we've got some sunny breaks coming up as we head toward midweek. There's a look at your weather headlines. Continued rain, of course, tonight. Midweek sunshine and seasonal temperatures, so that means it's a little cool. You look at the forecast here in terms of the rainfall. So this system really just kind of spinning here, very slow to move off. On the backside of it, we're still seeing some rain showers into tomorrow morning. They begin to taper off toward tomorrow afternoon, and then as we head toward tomorrow evening, generally looking at dry conditions, although cloud cover into the overnight period tomorrow. And that's basically the story as we head through Wednesday morning as well. So forecast-wise, not expecting to see anything in the way of sunshine really coming up until we get into Wednesday afternoon, and that's when you can expect to see some sunny breaks moving through. But wet weather at least for about the next 24 hours there across the GTA. Then into Wednesday and Thursday, some good sunshine in the forecast. Overnight tonight, southwestern Ontario, 7 degrees in Windsor and a few rain showers. Tomorrow tapering off. We'll see more in the way showers out toward London, but Windsor kind of not looking too bad there. Some sunny breaks in the forecast for the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe. Cooler temperatures tonight, rain showers and 6 degrees tomorrow. Highs up to about 10 degrees, and again, continuing showers. Gusty as well. We're looking at wind gusts that are going to be in the neighborhood of about 40 kilometers per hour. So breezy, wet weather for the next 24 hours. Then things start to improve. Cloud cover begins to clear out on Wednesday, 13 degrees. On Thursday, we've got highs to 12 degrees and a mix of sun and clouds. So that's sort of our midweek sunshine. And then toward the end of the week, yeah, you guessed it, we've got more in the way of rainfall. What we will have to keep an eye on for the kids, though, is Sunday and trick-or-treating, because that is probably the most important day of the forecast. Kelda.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Finally tonight, blink and you would have missed seeing this baby bump. Zoo staff in North Macedonia got a pleasant but decidedly tiny surprise after one of their pygmy marmosets had a baby. This little one is about the size of an average person's thumb. The new parents, timid by most standards, have been very protective around their tiny tyke, which has made it hard to figure out if it's a girl or a boy. Now, the names being tossed around are Thumb and Fly. Well, how about Dot? Even adult marmosets generally are about 13 centimeters long and weigh less than 100 grams. These miniature primates are native to South America. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.